Use what arises often as the main object of awareness. Whatever makes awareness arise readily enables us to see it arising and falling away often. Use this as an object of awareness. Suppose we are born with lots of accumulated merit and have a happy life. Be aware when happiness arises. Be aware when happiness maintains, and be aware when happiness falls away. Soon happiness arises again. Because we have lots of accumulated merit, happiness arises often. Therefore, use happiness as an object of awareness. See that happiness is impermanent, suffering, and not self. If we have lots of suffering, then suffering arises often. We often worry and are often stressed. These are defilements. The worrying and the suffering of the mind are feelings. Stress is a type of anger, which is a mental formation, a different aggregate from feelings. Happiness and sadness are feeling aggregates. Wholesomeness and unwholesomeness are mental formation aggregates. Keep observing. Suppose we get angry easily. Use anger as the object of awareness. The mind is angry, be aware. The mind is no longer angry, be aware. Keep observing this way all day long. Continue and keep observing. Then, when something else arises, we will see it naturally. When we can see one, then we will see whatever else arises. But use whatever arises often as the main object of awareness. This is called Dharma, the mind's dwelling place. When I practice concentration meditation, I use the breath as my Viharadhamma. But when I practice insight training, I use the mind as my Viharadhamma, as I learn from Luang Pu. I observe the mind arising and falling away. Whether wholesome or unwholesome, the mind arises and falls away. The happy mind and the sad mind both arise and fall away. My method is a mixture of contemplation of feelings, of the mind, and of mind objects. This is my Viharadhamma. Choose your own object of awareness. There's no need to copy anyone else. Use the meditation object that is natural for you. We shouldn't imitate others. The choice of object of awareness is up to each person. All objects of awareness, as long as their matter and mind, fall under the three characteristics of existence. We will see the three characteristics of existence in all of them, and in the end we will let go in the same manner. Whether we choose contemplation of the body, of feelings, of the mind, or of mind objects, we will reach the same goal, which is Nibbana, or Sunyata. All paths lead there. So, for those of us who think too much, keep watching the mind. Be persistent. Don't just watch today and then skip the practice for 3 days before resuming it again. This won't work. Observe often. Observe as much as you can, but don't be greedy. Observe diligently without expectation. For if we have expectations, we won't gain anything except suffering. But if we're diligent at being aware without any expectations, we will see the truth. Once we see the truth, we will automatically be liberated. The knowing mind that arises without intention. When we are mindful, we know when the mind slips away. When we are mindful, we have morality, samadhi, and wisdom. We begin to see the truth that even a stable mind is impermanent. One moment it slips to the eye, then to the ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Often when it slips to the mind, it's when we try to practice Dhamma. For a non-practitioner, the mind slips to thinking. For practitioners, the mind slips to the object of meditation and remains there fixedly. So don't actively try to maintain a knowing mind. We practice mindfulness until the mind becomes stable. and with the right samadhi, the knowing mind will arise. The knowing mind is wholesome. It is mindful without having the intention to be so. It is stable and ready to develop wisdom, to be aware of any phenomena that arise, maintain, and fall away. This is a good quality mind. A good quality knowing mind is one that arises without intention. The knowing mind that needs to be induced to arise is weak in strength. Is it good? It is good, but it's too weak for wisdom development. According to the Abhidhamma, the knowing mind that I'm describing is in fact Mahakusala Citta Jnana Sampayutta Asankharikang, or moral consciousness associated with knowledge. This means it is capable of developing wisdom. Asankharikang means unprompted or without intention. If we intentionally try to make this type of consciousness arise, it won't be of the best kind. When we see the mind that slips and is then aware, eventually we will see that the knowing mind is also impermanent. It also slips. It also arises and falls away. The mind that is lost through the eye is also impermanent. Once we are aware that the mind is lost through the eye, the lost mind falls away and the knowing mind arises in its place. Then the mind is lost through the ear to hear a sound. Once we are aware that the mind is lost through the ear, the lost mind falls away and the knowing mind arises in its place. It is the same at all the 6 doors. We see the mind alternately arising and falling away at each of them. One moment the mind is lost at one of the 6 sense doors, and the next moment is the knower. This is where wisdom will arise. We will see that the knowing mind is impermanent, and the lost mind, of whatever kind, is also impermanent. Keep knowing, keep watching, and the 3 characteristics of existence of the mind will be revealed. Wisdom will arise. If we can practice this way, our Dharma practice will be very brief. There's not much else. There's no further investigation required. The mind slips, be aware. The mind slips, be aware. We will gain morality, samadhi, and wisdom. And if we are very proficient at this, in the end, we will be liberated and enlightened. Remember that nobody can make the mind reach enlightenment. The more we strive, the further we stray from the enlightenment. Our duty is to be mindful of phenomena with a stable and equanimous mind. Once morality, samadhi, and wisdom are perfected, enlightenment will arise on its own. We cannot command enlightenment to arise, just as we cannot control morality, samadhi, and wisdom. Know the truth with a stable and equanimous mind. When we say we are aware of the body and mind as they really are, if we are aware of the body in terms of elements, we'll see the truth that the body is composed of elements and that it is impermanent, suffering, and not self. If we are aware of the mind, we'll see that it is just feelings, recollections and thoughts, consciousness, and feelings of happiness and sadness. Recollection is perception. Thoughts are wholesome and unwholesome fabrications, feelings, perception, and mental formations. Consciousness is citta. If we're able to do this, we are able to separate the aggregates. Physical aggregates are divided into 4 elements. Mental aggregates are divided into feeling, perception, and consciousness. All are impermanent, suffering, and not self. None of these are a person, nor an animal, nor me, nor him or her. Try to grasp the principle. Be aware of the body and mind as they truly are. See that they are just elements and aggregates, and that they are impermanent, suffering, and not self. This is the truth. To see this, the mind must be stable and equanimous. Therefore, when I say to be aware of the body and mind as they truly are, that is the main principle of insight development. I emphasize again that the mind must be stable and equanimous for us to see the truth as it really is.
Cultivation begins with separating the elements and aggregates. How do we use the knowing mind to cultivate wisdom? Separate the aggregates. Without the knowing mind, the aggregates cannot be separated. They are combined, and this combination constitutes what we are. However, if we have the knowing mind, we will be able to separate the aggregates. With the knowing mind, when we are aware of the body, we will see the body sitting. The body sitting is the object being observed, and the mind is the observer. The mind and the body are separate. The aggregates are separate. Take feelings that arise within the body. With the knowing mind, we'll see the body as one part, physical feelings as another part, and the mind as yet another part. Or when wholesomeness, unwholesomeness, liking, or disliking arise within, we'll see the body as one part, physical feelings as one part, mental feelings as one part, liking or disliking as one part, and the knowing mind as one part. The aggregates are distinct from each other. Luangda Mahabua once said, "If a practitioner cannot separate the aggregates, don't boast that he's cultivating wisdom." Thus, wisdom cultivation begins with the ability to separate the aggregates. In the scriptures, this process is called Nama Rupa Paricheta Yan, the ability to see matter and mind as distinct from one another. Knowledge arises from samadhi, samadhi which can separate between matter and mind and develop insight. This type of samadhi is known as characteristic examining chan, Lakanupanichkan. For practitioners, we know that this characteristic examining chan is the type of samadhi that arises with the mind, converting the mind to the knowing mind, not the thinking, imagining, fabricating, concentrating, or the lost mind.
Insight development makes the mind wise. Without true understanding of the elements and aggregates, the mind has desire. With desire, the mind becomes restless. It searches for good things and tries to get rid of bad things. If the mind still has desire to do this or that, it cannot really be equanimous. Let's practice until the mind becomes equanimous. This is when the mind just sees. It sees happiness arising and is equanimous. It is just seeing, seeing without having desire. The mind sees suffering arising and is equanimous. It is just seeing, without disliking the suffering. Just seeing or just knowing is easier said than done. Without accumulated wisdom, when the mind wants to just see, it sees without enthusiasm. This is seeing when doing concentration meditation, forcing the mind slightly. Force focusing the mind instead of just seeing and just knowing. This is futile. It cannot truly fight against defilements. This mind is still impure, ignorant, and sullied with defilements. We need to do insight development so that the mind has the right knowledge and the right understanding that the elements, the aggregates, and the sense organs are all equal. Each element, each aggregate, each sense organ arises and falls away, and none of them are under anyone's control. Once this is understood, the mind will stop struggling, stop wanting happiness, stop wanting not to suffer, stop wanting goodness, and stop wanting non-evil. Once the mind stops wanting, it won't struggle, and it will stop fabricating. Once the mind stops fabricating, it enters Lakhanupanit jhana, or characteristic examining jhana. It maintains stableness and is the knower, the observer, with the power of Lakhanupanit jhana. When the mind stops fabricating, it then experiences unconditioned reality, that which is devoid of conditioning activities and devoid of the conditioned is visankhara, which is another word for nibbana. The mind is free from desire. This is viraka, which is also a word for nibbana. The mind experiences nibbana. Nibbana is nothing extraordinary. It is the state where the mind is void of all craving. It is the state where the mind has stopped all fabrications. If we keep practicing Dhamma, in the end we will gain wisdom. The mind will cease to fabricate, and Nibbana will be realized. Venerable หลวงพ่อประโมท Pamocho, Suan Santitham Temple, October 30th, 2021